Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guides and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation.
Hello, boys! I'm back!
Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guides and Gear Reviews once again, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. We got a lot to talk about today, just like we always do, because, you know, the forces of anti-gun tyranny never, ever take a break. I want to thank everybody for being here so far. New York Outcast out there is an early adopter, and we got G-Webs in the house showing the support. Keith Gregory's out there, just popped in. How you doing? Roll Call 219's out there. He changed his name. Yes, I figured if Prince can change his name, then change his name, then change his name back, so can I. Not that, you know, I'm Prince or anything, but hey, if he can do it, I can do it. I got some minor static. It's probably not static. It's probably my furnace being picked up. So that's what I'm sure you're hearing. Either that or my levels are too high and it's peaking out on me and causing a little bit of problems. Does it sound as bad when I'm talking a little bit lower? Or is it that background stuff? If it's that background stuff, it's my furnace. There's not a whole lot I can do about that, other than turn my levels down and my gain down. But if I do that, then you can't hear me. Anyhow, got Warsaw Patriot in the house as well. M. Gabriel. I want to thank you guys for being out here. G-Web says he likes it better this way. I can only assume I'm getting some static noise, really. I don't know what that would be. It's wire static. Well, I'm not sure what I can do about that. Damn it. Seems like I just can't win. Well, you know what I can do, maybe, is change to a different microphone. Because right now I'm running through my Rode mic here. Now, let me see if I can go through this mic and be heard. One sec. Let me change the settings here. You know what, folks? Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to do something about this. Maybe replace the power cord on my mixer. I think that might be the issue then. It's only like 20% annoying. Well, I need to get rid of as much annoying as I can. Because, yeah. So, now, I'm running on a different microphone. Should be. And we'll see. Yep, that's not it. Now it's the boom mic here on my headset. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. And I will get this issue dealt with. Because, yeah, I would really like to be able to use my Rode mic. That's sounds like a static VHS tape. Yeah, I'd really like to use my Rode mic. It does sound like way better when, you know, it's working. But yeah, so the static is gone. Awesome. And we can, you know, says it's softer than before. Yeah, that's the problem. This microphone is not as sensitive as my Rode mic, and I can't turn the volume on it up any more than I already did. So, you know, when I have like a panel on, you can't hardly hear me, but you can hear them really well. So, yeah. Maybe I need to try and invest in a different headset mic and just run that. I don't know. But anyhow, we're not going to let this stop us. Technical diddlies are what we do, and we will continue despite the adversity. So, speaking of adversity, the forces of tyranny are on the march, as they always are. G-Web says it's very good now. Good. So the forces of tyranny are on the march, as they always are. And, well, They're proposing to ban, in effect, all semi-automatic firearms. Let's go to this piece from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, November 30th, 2023. Washington, D.C. NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association, flatly rejects the gas-operated semi-automatic firearms exclusion, GOSAFE, Act, which would ban the sale of modern sporting rifles and most other semi-automatic rifles. This proposed legislation is clearly unconstitutional, as the U.S. Supreme Court held in Heller that entire classes of firearms cannot be banned from legal sale and possession by law-abiding citizens. The bill was introduced today by U.S. Senators Angus King, Independent, Maine, and Martin Henrich, Democrat, New Mexico. The legislation introduced by Senators King and Henrich is openly defiant of the rights protected by the U.S. Constitution. There is no path forward for legislation of this nature that would deprive law-abiding citizens the ability to lawfully possess the firearm of their choosing and the full spectrum of their Second Amendment rights, said Lawrence G. Keene, NSSF Senior Vice President and General Counsel. This legislation is a knee-jerk reaction to a travesty for which the American public is still demanding answers as to why the Lewiston murderer, who clearly showed signs of mental instability and professed to violent threats, was allowed by state and federal agencies to continue to possess firearms. Depriving law-abiding citizens of their constitutional rights for the criminal acts of a depraved individual doesn't make our communities safer. The legislation introduced by Senators King and Henrich would ban the sale of commonly owned gas-operated semi-automatic rifles that can accept detachable magazines. The bill would also place a federal limit on magazine capacity, a measure that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found had no appreciable effect on crime reduction during the 1994 assault weapons ban. Pardon me. The murderer in Lewiston, Maine, was identified by military authorities while training in New York as having shown signs of violent criminal intent and was involuntarily committed to a mental health facility by authorities for 2 weeks before being released. Federal law should have prohibited the possession of firearms, but there was clearly a failure to properly report and act on this information. The murderer reportedly made threats of violent attacks against a National Guard facility in Maine. New York State Police were notified and reacted to the verbal threats made by the murderer, as well as Maine State Police. While the investigation is ongoing, it appears that neither the military nor either state law enforcement agency reported these instances to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System. NSSF championed the Fix NICS Act, which compelled federal agencies and incentivized state authorities to submit all disqualifying records to FBI NICS. The law was named after NSSF's Fix NICS initiative to change the law in 16 states and in Congress to get all disqualifying records submitted to FBI NICS to ensure firearms remain out of the hands of those who cannot be trusted to possess them. The Fix NICS Act was signed into law by President Donald Trump after the U.S. Air Force failed to submit disqualifying records of the murderer in Sutherland Springs, Texas, who should have been disqualified from purchasing firearms before his crimes. The failure of the U.S. Air Force to follow the law and submit several instances of disqualification resulted in the background check system being incomplete. There were over 24.4 million MSRs, modern sporting rifles, in circulation since 1990, which are used daily for lawful purposes, including self-defense, hunting, and recreational target shooting. So, King and Henrich have introduced this GOSAFE Act, which someone really had to want to fit that acronym, right? Anyhow, they've introduced this GOSAFE Act, and it'll basically ban pretty much all semi-autos. Let's take a look at what this... let's just take a look at the text of this act. No, I'm not going to sit here and read every single word of this. We are going to go over it, though, and hit the high, or rather low, points. So, let me move my... Yeah, there we go. I will move this over here so that it's not in the way. bill in the Senate of the United States to amend Title 18 U.S. Code to restrict the possession of certain firearms and for other purposes. So the short title is the Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearms Exclusion Act, or the GOSAFE Act. So they want to redefine semi-automatic firearm. Says that any firearm that, upon initiating the firing sequence, fires the first chamber cartridge and uses a portion of the energy of the firing cartridge to extract the expended cartridge case, chamber the next round, and prepare the firing mechanism to fire again, and requires a separate pull, release, push, or initiation of the trigger to fire each cartridge and is not a machine gun. Then it defines cycle to action. Now, here's where it does some things that don't make a lot of sense to me. It says the term gas operated with respect to a semi-automatic firearm means any firearm that harnesses or traps a portion of the high pressure gas from a fired cartridge, to cycle the action using A, a long stroke piston where gas is vented from the barrel to a piston that is mechanically fixed to the bolt group and moves to cycle the action. B, a short stroke piston where gas is vented from the barrel to a piston that moves separately from the bolt group so that the energy is imparted through a gas piston to cycle the action. Think, long stroke piston, AK. Short stroke piston, SKS. C, a system that traps and vents gas from either the barrel or the chamber to directly strike or impinge the bolt carrier or slide assembly to unlock and cycle the action. They're talking about direct impingement, AR-15, right? D, a hybrid system that combines elements of a system described in subparagraph C with a system described in subparagraph A or B to capture gas vented from the barrel to cycle the action. Or E, a blowback operated system that directly utilizes the expanding gases of the ignited propellant powder acting on the cartridge case to drive the breech block or breech bolt rearward. That sounds like any semi-automatic pistol, doesn't it? Sounds like your semi-automatic blowback-operated pistol caliber carbines, doesn't it? F, a recoil-operated system that utilizes the recoil force to unlock the breech bolt and then to complete the cycle of extracting, ejecting, and reloading. It defines the term large capacity ammunition feeding device as a magazine belt, drum, feed strip, helical feeding device, or similar device, including any such device joined or coupled with another in any manner. In other words, if you have one magazine affixed to another via tape, or one magazine affixed to another being one of the many magazine couplers that are available, has an overall capacity of, or that can be readily restored, altered, or converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition, and is not permanently fixed. So, anything that does not have a permanently fixed magazine is a high-capacity magazine. That's just about everything. There are some exceptions, like an SKS does not have a removable magazine. Not easily removable. You have to do a little bit of something to it in order to take the fixed magazine out so that you can use removable magazines, but does not include any device designed to accept and capable of operating only with 22 or less caliber rimfire ammunition. So let's go ahead to the prohibitions. It's wants to amend Section 922 by inserting after subsection U the following. It shall be unlawful for any person to import, sell, manufacture, transfer, receive, or possess in or affecting interstate or foreign commerce a firearm, device, or combination of parts described in subparagraphs A through H, knowing or having reasonable cause to believe that the firearm is included on the list of prohibited gas-operated semi-automatic firearms described in Section 935A. The modified non-prohibited firearm, as modified, operates as a firearm included on the list. Combination of parts designed to modify an otherwise non-prohibited firearm. Let me see. Let's go back down here. Let's go to where it talks about prohibitions. So it talks about some licensed importers and manufacturers and whatnot. Where's the prohibition? Sorry, folks. I guess I should have highlighted all this garbage, right? Prohibited firearm determinations. This is where it's talking about where the ATF will decide what's prohibited or not. And then appeals and what. Where is it? Damn it. Bear with me, folks. I got to find this again. As you can see, laws are a little bit confusing. I wonder if they do that shit on purpose, right? Well, at any rate, it then goes to say that there are some exceptions, being 22 caliber. Here. For purposes of this subsection, the term gas-operated semi-automatic firearm does not include any firearm designed to accept and capable of operating only with 22 caliber rimfire ammunition. I guess 17 HMR, you guys are hosed. A rifle that is single shot is a breech-loading rifle with a capacity not to exceed 2 rounds of ammunition, is a muzzle-loading rifle or smoothbore shoulder-fired firearm, uses a bolt action, lever action, or pump action to cycle the action of the rifle, has a permanently fixed magazine with a capacity not to exceed 10 rounds of ammunition that cannot be converted or changed to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Actually, this would still prohibit the SKS because it can be converted by removing the internal magazine. Interesting. A shotgun that is a single-shot shotgun is a breech-loading shotgun with a capacity not to exceed 2 rounds. So buy a shotgun, buy a double-barrel shotgun, and fire 2 blasts, right? It's a muzzle-loading shotgun, uses a bolt action, lever action, or pump action to cycle the action of the shotgun, is a semi-automatic or auto-loading shotgun, or has a permanently fixed magazine with a capacity not to exceed 10 rounds that cannot be converted or changed to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Well, fellas, that Maverick 88 you got, might as well forget that because it can accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition if you put the short shells in it. Same with your Winchester 1200. So, yeah, enjoy that. Or your Mossberg 500. You know, if you put that little rubber feed assisting device in it, it can easily use the Aguila shorties. Breech loading firearm capable of holding a single cartridge and a single shotgun shell simultaneously. Does not include a handgun that's a single shot. Oh, I'm glad they'll let us have that. Is a breech loading handgun with a capacity not to exceed 2 rounds of ammunition. I guess you can have Derringers then, right? Is a muzzle loading or smoothbore handgun or bolt action handgun, or a single or double action revolver. Well, how nice. Single or double action semi-automatic handgun that uses recoil to cycle the action of the handgun. Oh, I guess they'll let us have that. That's nice. Or has a permanently fixed magazine with a capacity not to exceed 15 rounds of ammunition that cannot be converted or changed to accept more than 15 rounds of ammunition. That's nice. And then they'll let you transfer to immediate family, and that's it. You basically can't sell your firearm to anybody else. So that's this bit of garbage that these wonderful people want to pass off on us. What do you guys think about this out in the chat? And if you're listening to this in the replay, let me know down below what you think about this garbage. Let's see what's going out in the chatteroo. Mr. Knives is out there. Warsaw is a little bit upset with this, it appears. Defense Dad says FJB. I mean, good evening, everybody. Yeah, FJB is good evening. Doesn't even cover all the SKSs because some of them do take AK mags. That's right, Scott 79. The SKS, I think D takes a removable magazine and removable AK mags, plus ones that have been modified to take the Tapco 20 rounders are removable, or all the other duck-billed magazines. Let's go, Brandon. What are you looking for? Control F. Oh, they absolutely do it on purpose. Yeah, they absolutely do it on purpose, right? Make it hard to find stuff. Eric King says they're literally daring us to use the 2A on them. I don't know about that. G-Web seems a little bit skeptical of that proposition as well. But, you know, it's... I mean, who knows? They could... that could be a response to this. I sure hope not, because that would simply give them more ammunition, pun intended, to use against us. But, you know... There are people out there who would definitely take that path, and I hope they don't. Yes, this is a Canadian-style law, except in Canuckistan, they are limited to what? 5 rounds in a fixed magazine now? G-Web says the SKSD and SKSM both are factory mag-capable versions. There you go. This would certainly ban them. So they'll let you keep your 22 long rifle rifles and pistols. How nice of them. I'm so glad that you know, I'll be able to have the same options that Mexico has. You know, soon they'll give it down to one gun store like they do in Mexico, right? But wait, unless you have friends in the ATF, then they'll run all kind of guns to you. They'll hand deliver it, right? Well, the buffoon that masterminded this stuff has a rebuttal to what the NSSF is saying. Not specifically the NSSF, but what critics of this legislation are saying. This is from Portland Press Herald. Senator Angus King. New legislation can protect communities while protecting gun rights. Just that whole headline right there, both parts of it, lie. This law wouldn't change Maine's proud history of responsible gun ownership. Lie. By Senator Angus S. King, Jr. On the evening of October 25th in Lewiston, we lost 18 parents, children, cousins, friends, and neighbors in an act of senseless violence. And within the span of a few hours, our community felt the horrors of what too many American neighborhoods have now experienced, losing that feeling of safety at their local restaurants, recreation centers, schools, places of worship, concerts, and even just on the local street corner. Yes, Angus, so your answer is to just make them less safe by keeping them from being able to defend themselves properly. In the days and weeks since then, I've joined Maine people as we grieved and shared stories of the legacy of Lewiston victims left behind. The loss of these 18 people cast a difficult shadow over last week's Thanksgiving as we continued to process the tragedy. Maine came together, including the governor, my colleagues in our congressional delegation, and even the president, to remember those we lost and support each other as we work toward healing. As I said on the floor of the U.S. Senate, and again that awful day after Lewiston, mourning these deaths was a first priority. There would be time to talk policy solutions later, which can reduce the chances of yet another community being torn apart in Maine or anywhere else. But now the time for that discussion has come. For years, I've been talking to the people across the state of Maine, parents, sportsmen, hunters, and community leaders, and working with colleagues to craft policies that make these tragedies less likely. Saving lives now and in the future has been my single goal. Universal background checks, red flag laws, and a strengthened mental health system are all part of the solution. No, and maybe, depending on what you mean by that. But as Lewiston taught us, we must also look at the weapons like the one used that night in Maine and what makes them so deadly. That's why my colleague Senator Martin Henreich of New Mexico, an avid sportsman himself, he's a butter. I support the Second Amendment, and I have put together an approach to better protect communities from mass shootings while protecting the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Americans. Both of which, folks, are lies. Our legislation, the Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearm Exclusion Act, is focused on the way in which large-capacity semi-automatic weapons operate, the type of firearm used in Lewiston and most of the deadliest mass shootings across our country. For years, I've said that rather than use model numbers or the appearance of these guns to restrict them, we should instead focus our attention on the mechanisms of these weapons and what makes them especially dangerous. To that point, my legislation with Senator Henreich would do the following. Limit the number of rounds that a gun's magazine can contain and require those magazines to be permanent, eliminating the ability for gunmen in mass shootings to replace a magazine and reload their weapons rapidly. Apparently this asshole's never heard of a stripper clip, right? Hell, they've already done this in California, where one of the ways you can have an AR-15 is to have the magazine not be removable. But then people have invented these stripper clip-like things that go in through the ejection port and just force a bunch of rounds real quick into the fixed magazine. So yeah, apparently, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. But that should come as no surprise. They are politicians after all, and they're anti-gun politicians to boot, which means either A, they don't know what they're talking about, or B, they know what they're talking about, and they're deliberately lying to you in order to mislead and confuse you. This builds on previous legislative efforts by prohibiting the sale of certain semi-automatic firearms that have replaceable high-capacity magazines. Make lethal conversion devices like bump stocks and Glock switches, which convert a conventional rifle or handgun to fully automatic operation, effectively a machine gun, unlawful. Well, no shit, they already are. Except the bump stocks are going to be coming back, guaranteed, because SCOTUS disagrees with you. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. This law wouldn't change Maine's proud history of responsible gun ownership. Lie. It makes common sense. Lie. Exceptions for traditional hunting firearms and those used in self-defense, for example. As long as, they agree that you can have it. What this bill will do is curb opportunities for people intending to commit mass killing without hindering the marksmen who head to the shooting range or the woods during hunting season. By mandating permanently fixed magazines, it would eliminate the opportunity for shooters to rapidly reload their weapon, a critical moment for potential victims to escape or for responders to neutralize the shooter. Again, lie or incompetence, you decide which. This isn't and shouldn't become a partisan issue. It shouldn't be an issue. And for the most part, saving lives from these weapons isn't. In fact, nationally, there is a broad agreement. President Trump banned bump stocks in 2019, which was an absolute mistake. 82% of Americans support universal background checks. No one I talk to does. 72% of Americans support a national red flag law. What 72%? Is it 72% of the respondents of that particular poll whose questions were crafted to get the results you wanted? Because, you can do that. You can get whatever results you want out of a poll based upon how you craft the questions, how you ask the questions, and who you ask. But I digress. And almost 2/3 of Americans believe that so-called assault weapons should be banned. Again, another lie. Even late Supreme Court Justice Scalia, a staunch pro-gun conservative, said, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. Commentators in courts routinely explained that the right was not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever, in any manner whatsoever, and for whatever purpose. Nothing, in our opinion, should be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws imposing conditions and qualifications on a commercial sale of arms. Well, couple things. One, Scalia was wrong to put that in his decision. And number two, he put that in a decision in order to make it more likely to get some votes from the more wishy-washy wing of the court. But again, I digress. I realize that nothing can bring back the lives of our family and friends, but responsible actions moving forward can reduce the likelihood of such a nightmare happening again in Maine or anywhere else. Again, another lie. We owe the victims in Lewiston no less. You owe the victims in Lewiston and any potential victims in the future the ability to defend themselves from attacks like this. You owe them the ability to ignore stupid fucking signs like the one on the door of the bowling alley that said you can't bring guns here, or the one on the bar, or the laws on the bar that said you can't bring guns here. How stupid do you have to be to understand, or to not understand, or really to deliberately ignore the fact that while we'll never know for certain what the outcome would have been if someone in either of those two locations would have been able to draw a firearm and defend themselves and everybody else there from that lunatic. We won't know for sure, but I guarantee you one thing we do know for sure: the odds would have been a hell of a lot better. Having helpless victims doesn't make people safe. And as far as the means by mass killing, wasn't there just a mass stabbing in New York? Didn't that fellow in, was it Kobe, Japan? Didn't he set an office building on fire and kill hundreds of people, or dozens anyway? Yeah. Killer's gonna kill. Flat out. If they can't get it one way, they'll get it another. What do you guys think about out there? What do you guys believe out there in this in the chat about this? Please sound off. And once again, sound off in the comments below if you're listening on the replay. But before you do that, smack that thumbs up button. Let the algorithm know that this is content worth watching. Let's see. The last manifesto that was made public, the killer writes in there about how they will use guns to kill in order to instigate more laws. So the anti-rights types are playing right into that plan. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. We talked about that last week, G. Just like the hundreds or thousands of other gun control laws that don't work, says Scott 79. Let's see. Angus forgets that the Supreme Court has said you cannot ban an entire class of firearm. Oh, he don't forget. Make no mistake. He ain't forgetting. He's ignoring. There is a humongous difference there, Scott. He's just ignoring that inconvenient fact. Let's see. Funny, they always lie the facts that switches are already restricted under federal law. Yep. Unless you're a teenager in Chicago, in which case you can pretty much openly display them and shoot them and nobody gives a damn, and they don't flood the city with ATF agents trying to round them up, do they? If I'm in there, it's not a gun-free zone, says Scott P79. I don't give a shit what any sign says. What's the worst that can happen? They can ask you to leave. It depends on where you are. In Ohio, you can go to jail for it. It is a criminal offense. It's not a trespassing offense. It's a criminal offense in and of itself. Carly says, I agree with everything you say, always. Well, thank you, but please don't just unilaterally agree with everything I say, because sometimes even I say some stupid shit. Gun G Webs says each new law will save one more life, so we just need about 3.5 million laws and we will all be safe. That's it. That seems to be the theory that the anti-gun tyranny crowd is going for. Speaking of anti-gun tyranny, last week we talked about how in Maryland their handgun licensing scheme, license to purchase scheme, was struck down. Well, Maryland State Police don't care. This is a piece from AmmoLand by John Crump. Maryland State Police choose to enforce unconstitutional law. The Maryland State Police issued a directive to all employees to keep enforcing the Maryland handgun qualification license law, even though a panel of 3 judges from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the law to be unconstitutional. On November 21, 2023, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit rendered a decision in a case questioning the constitutionality of the handgun qualification license codified in Maryland Public Safety Article 5-117.1. The memo reads, "The Fourth Circuit Court's opinion is that HQL law is unconstitutional. The Maryland HQL law requires anyone who wants to purchase a handgun to attend a training class taught by the Maryland State Police certified instructor, fill out an application, get a background check, and pay a fee to the state. Maryland shall issue sued the state over the requirements in Maryland. Maryland shall issue Inc. versus Westmore, believing it violated the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision in New York Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin strengthened MSI's legal claim that the law was unconstitutional. In the SCOTUS opinion, Associate Justice Clarence Thomas wrote that a firearm law must be consistent with the plain text, tradition, and history of the Second Amendment. The government could not provide any historical analogs from the founding era that show a law similar to the current Maryland HQL requirements. The memo went out on November 21, 2023, the same day the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals issued its opinion in MSI v. Moore, stating that the state police will continue to enforce the law until the courts give an official mandate. The court issued the ruling but has yet to release the mandate. The mandate is expected, but until it is published, the state police are free to enforce the law as they see fit. At this time, the HQL law remains in effect, and there are no immediate changes in the process to purchase a firearm in Maryland. The letter reads, "The opinion of the Fourth Circuit Court does not become effective until the court issues a mandate." Maryland is expected to ask the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals for an en banc hearing, meaning the entire bench will hear the case. If an en banc hearing is granted, the Circuit Court could vacate the decision until the case is heard. So there you go, folks. The court said, yeah, you can't do that. The state police said, watch us. We're going to keep doing it until we're forced to stop. Tyrant's got a tyrant, right? That's pretty much the way it always goes. It's unfortunate that freedom-loving people have to spend all the time and treasure that they have to keep the tyrants from treading all over their rights. G-Web's dog's on 9mm because he's trying to hoard all of it. That's really what it is. That's it. G-Web's has been trying to get everyone to not use 9mm so that he can keep as much of it as he can because he secretly loves 9mm. That's exactly what it is. I think you're right, Rob. It's not all bad news, though, in the 2A world right now, because we have had a victory or two, such as this piece from Breitbart. From when was this published? 1st of December, 2023. Judge strikes down federal ban on handgun sales for 18 to 20-year-olds. On Friday, Judge Thomas S. Klee issued a decision striking down the federal prohibition against 18 to 20-year-olds purchasing handguns. The plaintiffs in the case are Stephen Robert Brown, Benjamin Weekley, the Second Amendment Foundation, SAF.org, folks. $15 a year makes you a member and helps you support the people that fight for your rights, and the West Virginia Citizens Defense League. Judge Klee, a Donald Trump appointee, is Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the Northern District of West Virginia. Klee put the case in context. This case requires the court to assess the protected right of the people under the Second Amendment to the Constitution to keep and bear arms. The U.S. Constitution Amendment 2, plaintiffs Robert Brown and Benjamin Weekley, individuals, are law-abiding, responsible adult citizens who wish to purchase handguns. Brown and Weekly are citizens of West Virginia and the United States of America and are between the ages of 18 and 21. Brown and Weekly, as law-abiding, responsible adult citizens, would purchase handguns and handgun ammunition from FFLs, but for the right prescribed by 18 U.S.C. 922b1 and c1. He went on to explain that Brown and Weekly had each tried to buy a handgun but were refused the sale because they were under 21 years of age. Klee noted that the plaintiffs sought summary judgment against the statute, while the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Attorney General Merrick Garland and ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach sought to have the case dismissed. He sided with the plaintiffs and quoted extensively from Bruin to show the manner at which he arrived at his decision. Here is one of Klee's quotes from the Bruin decision. To justify its regulation, the government may not simply posit that the regulation promotes an important interest. To demonstrate the regulation of that conduct is within the bounds of the Second Amendment, the government must demonstrate that the regulation is consistent with the nation's historic tradition of firearm regulation. Only if a firearm regulation is consistent with the nation's historical tradition may a court conclude that the individual's conduct falls outside the Second Amendment's unqualified command. He pointed to the overarching test that the Supreme Court of the United States set forth in Bruin. The test that we set forth in Heller and apply today requires courts to assess whether modern firearms regulation are consistent with the Second Amendment's text and historical understanding. In siding with the plaintiffs, Klee enjoined the ATF, Garland, and Dettelbach from enforcing a ban on handgun purchases against 18 to 20-year-olds who are otherwise qualified to make such purchases. The case is Brown v. ATF in the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of West Virginia. Now, we know that this is going to get appealed, obviously, but I think this is an important step towards ensuring and securing that the rights of 18 to 20-year-olds who are legally adults are protected. I've never agreed with the proposition that someone's an adult, but not really. That you're an adult and can enter into contracts, can get married, can take out mortgages, can purchase a house, can get drafted, can serve, fight, and die for your country, but you can't order a beer, you can't have a cigarette, you can't buy a firearm of any type. Even now, the rights of 18 to 20-year-olds are curtailed, even with respect to long arms. The ATF routinely delays as much as possible firearm purchases, long gun purchases by 18 to 20-year-olds. My son just had to wait 15 business days because he got delayed for 5 and then got delayed for 10 more when he bought a bubbled up Lee Enfield that he wants to restore as far as he can. So, the ATF, well, it was ridiculous to begin with, but B, are going to take this, they're going to try to take this as far as they can because that's what they do. Tyrants got a tyrant. Yeah, the age 21 cigarette ban, that's garbage. I don't support smoking. I used to be a smoker. I quit when my wife and I decided to have our son. So, shit, that was 20 years ago I quit. But, I think if you're an adult and you want to smoke, go right ahead. Ain't no skin off my nose as long as you're not doing it around me. I don't like the concept of a probationary adult, a quasi-adult status that 18 to 20-year-olds enjoy, quote unquote. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's asinine. And it's just, downright stupid. Speaking of downright stupid.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, folks, first up is the wonderful senator from Maine, Angus King. And you can guess what this is about. Rifles with detachable magazines are only useful for killing. This is from Breitbart. On Thursday's broadcast of CNN This Morning, Senator Angus King said that gun control legislation he introduced is a new approach to assault weapons because it says that a gun that operated as these weapons do, as any rifle does, cannot have a detachable magazine and must have an internal magazine with no more than 10 bullets. And to me, this is purely consistent with banning machine guns 100 years ago or sawed-off shotguns. These are particularly dangerous, useful only for killing people, and we want to diminish that lethality. You know, they're not useful for hunting at all. No. You know, how many millions of people went hunting this year with AR-15 pattern rifles in various calibers for deer or coyotes or whatever else they decided they wanted to hunt? King said this is a new approach to the problem of assault weapons, and we're really focusing on is the way it works, the way the gun actually works rather than what it looks like. And the heart of it, Erica, is that those big curved magazines that you see that hold 15, 20, 40 bullets, and our bill would essentially prohibit that. They would say that a gun that operated as these weapons do, as any rifle does, cannot have a detachable magazine and must have an internal magazine with no more than 10 bullets. That's it. And we're focusing on the lethality of these things. So, Kooky King, you, for saying that rifles with detachable magazines are only useful for killing, you know, forget about all the people that have defended themselves and others with rifles with detachable magazines. You're our first contestant on Moron of the Week. Next up, this feller. This is from thesmokinggun.com. Suspect had handgun inside his body. November 27th. An ex-con with a lengthy rap sheet who was prohibited from carrying a handgun had a Smith & Wesson pistol stashed in his rectum when he was booked into jail early this morning, according to an Indiana police report. Christopher Boyd, 32, was a passenger in a vehicle pulled over around 2 a.m. for an obstructed license plate. The driver and a second passenger were eventually released after being searched by Evansville cops. A pat-down of Boyd, however, turned up a small bag with multiple pills in his right sock. Boyd reportedly said he got the narcotics from his Aunt Trish and believed the pills to be Percocet. He used the painkiller, Boyd said, because he has a bullet lodged in his spine. That's not the only thing he had lodged. Before being placed in a cruiser, Boyd, seen at right, was searched, though he claimed to be unable to spread his legs very far due to his spine injury. When searching in Boyd's groin area, Boyd tensed up, a cop noted. That's, by the way, when you're doing a search and someone tenses up, that's a sure sign they got something hid somewhere and you're pretty close to it. A cop noted, adding that he asked the suspect if he had anything stuffed in his groin or buttocks. Boyd stated he did not, police reported. Upon arriving at the county jail, Boyd was now walking with a limp and appeared to be clenching his buttocks while he walked. Boyd was then placed through a body scanner which detected a large object in his groin region. A strip search located 2 plastic bags containing marijuana tucked next to Boyd's scrotum. Police then sought to remove an unknown item from Boyd's rectum. While Boyd continued to clench his buttocks, a cop was able to see that the object Boyd had in his rectum was a handgun. The weapon was subsequently removed from inside Boyd and secured in a patrol car. The report does not indicate whether the gun was loaded. The confiscated pistol was a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, a .380 caliber weapon that weighs around 12 ounces and is about 5 inches long. With its micro frame size, the pistol is lightweight and simple to use and is perfectly suited for concealed carry, according to the manufacturer's website. Although I suspect they weren't intending it to be concealed quite that deeply. I mean, hell, I've heard of pocket carry, but prison pocket carry? That's a little bit much. Next up, in Moron of the Week, is this piece from Breitbart. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson blames right-wing extremists for city's problems. Democrat Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson blamed right-wing extremism for some of the ills facing his crime-ridden city. Johnson issued his statement about the far right during a press conference on Tuesday. What we've seen is a very raggedy form of right-wing extremism, the mayor said. Everyone knows that the right-wing extremism in this country has targeted democratically run cities, and quite frankly, they've been quite intentional about going after democratically ran cities that are led by people of color. No, just the democratically run cities, that's pretty much the only criteria for people to go after, because, they suck. The mayor even said that such right-wing extremists aim to create division and chaos because that's what that particular political party has been about. Certainly you're talking about the Democrats, right? Because the Democrats are the ones creating division and chaos and confusion all about this country, not the Republicans. And the same party that wouldn't accept that President Obama was actually an American. It's the same Republican right-wing extremism that stormed the Capitol, yes, and was invited in by Capitol Police, and possibly, as we're finding out, incited to do so by federal agents. It's raggedy. It's disrespectful. It's mean-spirited. Well, just like you are there, Jenky Johnson. So this fella, this jerkwad, Brandon, let's go Brandon Johnson, is contestant number 3 on Moron of the Week for blaming everybody but the failed Democratic policies of the last 100-some years on the problems in Chicago. So let me get to this and get the poll out. So who are you voting for, folks? Let me know what you think. Kooky King, Prison Pocket, or Jerkwad Johnson? Who should be the moron of the week? And get back to the main. Let me know out in the chat what you think, who should be the moron of the week. Not only just in the poll, but in the comment, in the chat, and if you're listening in the replay, tell me down below who you think should have been the moron. Right now, we only have 3 votes, all of them for Jerkwad Johnson. And we got, how many people we have watching this right now? 12 people watching, and we only have 4 votes? Come on, man. As El Sniffador would say. Patriot says, I hate to be the officer touching that thing. G-Web says, I need the pills because I have a 9mm lodged in me. Yes. Well, 9mm short, yes. Says, that's how a Smith & Wesson lover carries their stuff, I guess. Yeah, right. Poll not working. I got it working up here. It says I got 4 votes. Should be working. Anybody else having problems with the poll? We might have to do it the old-fashioned way and vote in the chat. M. Gabriel says Johnson. I'm really shocked no one's voting for Prison Pocket, because I sure would have voted for that idiot. I don't think that I would want a Prison Pocket carry. That seems like it would be a good way to get a bullet lodged in your spine, right? G-Web says it worked for him both times. Speaking of Chicago, G-Webs is voting like we're in Chicago. Got 5 votes out there. Warsaw says Johnson. Need to get some more votes, folks. Get some voter participation up in here. Kooky King has 1. 6 votes. One of them just came in for Angus. And if you're wondering what I'm drinking, it's Diet Mountain Dew. So I got to have my caffeine rush. And Gabriel says deep concealment gets honorable mention. All right, folks. We got Jerkwad Johnson going once. Jerkwad Johnson going twice. Jerkwad Johnson going 3 times. We are going to go ahead and call this one. Let's go, Brandon Johnson. You are the winner of the Moron of the Week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, folks, it is that time. We've talked about our topics. We've chosen our moron. There's only one thing left to do, and that is Roll Call 219's favorite segment, Self-Defense Shoutouts. Self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. It's instead where I'm reveling in the proposition that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to keep the bad guy from making him do the same. Up first is this piece from actionnews5.com. Bystander shoots, kills robbery suspect at Dollar General. This is from November 28th. Memphis, Tennessee. Pardon me. Memphis police say a robbery suspect was shot and killed at Dollar General on Tuesday. The robbery happened around 10:30 a.m. at 6770 Winchester Road. Police say 3 armed people entered the business in a robbery attempt. During the robbery, a bystander fired a gun at the 3 suspects. The bullet hit one of them, and the man later died at the hospital. Police have detained a second suspect at the scene, while the third person remains at large. No charges have been filed at this time. Next is this piece from 13newsnow.com. Robber shot by Yorktown gas station clerk, deputies say. The suspect, who has not been publicly identified, was brought to a hospital for treatment. It's unclear the severity of his injuries. Yorktown, Virginia. A clerk of a Yorktown convenience store shot and injured a robbery suspect Monday morning, the York Pockwauson Sheriff's Office said in a Facebook post, which I probably destroyed the pronunciation of that, my bad. The incident unfolded at around 9:15 a.m. when a 38-year-old man tried to rob Joe's Quick Mart located on George Washington Memorial Highway, but was thwarted by a store clerk, officials said. The suspect, who has not been publicly identified, was brought to a hospital for treatment. The severity of his injuries is unclear. The sheriff's office has not said that the clerk is facing charges in the incident, but said an investigation is ongoing. Anyone who may have witnessed the shooting is urged to call, blah, blah, blah. That clerk should not be even remotely fixing to face charges on that. I mean, hell, he should get a medal for dropping a armed robber. Made the world a safer place, in my opinion. WVTM13.com gives us this piece. 19-year-old shot to death, another stabbed after argument in Bessemer. Police are investigating after an argument in Bessemer left a man dead and another hospitalized. Around 1:44 p.m. Tuesday, police responded to the 1300 block of Hearn Avenue to find that a man had been shot to death while another man was suffering from stab wounds, according to the Bessemer Police Department. Police believe the 2 men had been involved in an altercation which led to the stabbing. The stabbing victim then shot his attacker in what officers say may have been a justified shooting. Sure sounds like it to me. And that is it, folks. That's what we got for this week for self-defense shoutouts. So, despite what the lamestream legacy media would have you believe, the good guy stops the bad guy all the time. And I know I usually limit these to 3. I could do more than that. Some weeks I could do way more than that. But for brevity's sake, I limit it to 3. Couldn't see the words, just the white oval boxes. That's weird. That's what Tread says. And hey, Tread, how you doing? So, folks, I want to thank you all for coming by and being part of this dumpster fire tonight. Despite our early technical diddlies, we pushed through, and I'm glad to see that some of you were even here from the start all the way to the finish. As always, I am humbled and amazed that you've chosen to spend this time with me. You could be doing anything on your Sunday evening, but instead you're here. Even after my long hiatus, you've decided to come back and stick around and watch this stuff, and I absolutely appreciate it. It makes me feel that I made the right choice in starting this back up again and endeavoring to persevere. Bonus points if you can tell me where that came from. Endeavor to persevere. I want to make sure you guys understand, though, that given this garbage bill introduced in the Senate, to basically ban all semi-automatic firearms, that you have to really intensify your efforts to let your Congress critters and elected representatives know what you think. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, bicycle, messenger, carrier pigeon, semaphore, smoke signals, heliograph, anything that you have to do to let them know. And never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.